Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, two people shot and killed at bar on the corner of Maxfield Avenue. Westmoreland police probing suspected murder-suicide in Headley Town. Digicel looking to block stolen cell phones from accessing all local mobile networks. 14 policemen under scrutiny for involvement in 30 of 129 fatal shootings. Chapelton Hospital in Clarendon reopens after years of closure. In business, gas prices see lowest ex-refinery rates since the second week of January. In the region, Guatemala court convicts former president and vice president on fraud and conspiracy counts. Further overseas, Facebook parent Meta Platforms may be forced to consider removing news content from its platform. And in sports, West Indies captain Craig Brathwaite ranked the best Caribbean batter in the latest ICC batting rankings. Now for the news in detail. Two people were shot and killed at a bar on the corner of Maxfield Avenue and Richmond Park Avenue in Kingston Wednesday evening. A third victim of the shooting remains in hospital. One of the deceased has been identified as Marlon Carr, while the other, a woman, remains unidentified. The police report that gunmen entered the premises and held up a man who was in the yard. The man reportedly ran into the bar and was chased by the gunmen who shot him and the woman inside the bar, killing them and wounding another man. The deceased man is said to have been from Tivoli Gardens. The police in Westmoreland are probing a suspected murder-suicide in Headley Town, Senior District, Cambridge. The body of 42-year-old dressmaker Alicia Smithson was discovered on Tuesday in a pool of blood in her bedroom, with the hands bound to the leg of a bed and a bloody sheet wrapped around the neck and covering her face. Her boyfriend, identified as Robert Stewart of a Cornwall Courts address in Montego Bay, St. James, was found hanging from a rope tied to a piece of steel located at the back of the yard. His body was discovered by the deceased woman's uncle. It is reported that he was employed at a popular tool supply company in Montego Bay. An uncle of Alicia Smithson believes jealous rage could be behind the tragedy. He described his niece as a quiet, soft-spoken, well-mannered and hard-working single mother. And a Westmoreland man was murdered just 1 day shy of becoming a father, leaving his family heartbroken with questions. The body of 23-year-old Otis Rattray Jr. was found riddled with bullets in his bed at his Darling Street home in Savannah Lamar in the parish Wednesday morning. He was discovered by his younger brother, Daniel, who went to check on him. Daniel says he found his brother motionless on his bed with blood frothing from his mouth. He thought his brother was poisoned, but when he removed the sheet, he saw that he had been shot. His grandmother says her grandson was never in a rift with anyone and described her late grandson as quiet. A friend also described him as a peacemaker. According to the Jamaica Constabulary Force's crime statistic data, as of December 5, Westmoreland has recorded 136 murders, 17 more than the corresponding period last year. Police have launched a manhunt in search of a gunman who was shot by a licensed firearm holder during a robbery at a gas station in Cross Keys, South Manchester on Wednesday. Preliminary reports are that shortly before 3 p.m., the gunman held up a gas station and was challenged by the firearm holder. A shootout ensued and both the licensed firearm holder and gunman were shot. The injured gunman fled the scene. Police say the licensed firearm holder was rushed to hospital. And still in Manchester, the police are probing an armed robbery at a gas station in Knockpatrick, Tuesday evening. Preliminary reports are that about 6 o'clock, 5 gunmen held up the establishment. During the robbery, pump attendants were reportedly held hostage. The gunmen reportedly forced a pump attendant into an adjoining minimart where they took an undisclosed sum of cash. They also stole cell phones, among other valuables, before fleeing in an awaiting motorcar. Sources say in recent months, the gas station has been targeted by criminals. Telecommunications company Digicel says it is looking to block stolen cell phones from accessing all local mobile networks. The company says it is collaborating on an industry solution to make this happen. It says that the move represents a significant step in an industry-wide effort to prevent the sale of stolen phones. They are working through a collaboration with the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology and industry stakeholders. Already, Digicel customers are able to report the loss or theft of their phones. However, the devices are only blocked on its network. By supporting a cross-network solution, Digicel says stolen phones will be disabled and included in a national database that would prevent them from being reconnected to any network. In addition to cross-network blocking, Digicel is urging smartphone users to download and use apps that may help to track their devices and protect their data in the event of phone theft. The government of the Republic of Korea gifted Jamaica medical equipment and supplies valued at some $1 million on Tuesday. The donation includes bedside stethoscopes, operating theater tables, anesthetic machines, electrosurgical units, diathermy pencils, and incubators. State Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Leslie Campbell, says the government of Korea will be providing additional supplies. Campbell says the donation builds on the steady and consistent support that Korea has been providing to Jamaica since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Campbell also lauded the government and people of the Republic of Korea for their commitment and continued bilateral partnership. He notes that the two countries have partnered in the areas of health, education, culture, environmental protection, and energy. In the meantime, Chargé d'Affaires in the Embassy of the Republic of Korea, Beijing Lim, says Korea's commitment to the government and people of Jamaica has never wavered. 14 policemen are now under scrutiny for their involvement in 30 of 129 fatal shootings over the one-year period ending June 2021. According to records of the Independent Commission of Investigations Indicom, the same 14 have been flagged in 112 police-involved deaths between 2010 and June 30, 2021. One of the cops has reportedly killed 20 persons in 11 years. The police oversight body says fatal shootings by the security forces remain at a critically high level in Jamaica. Highlighting key points in its report, Indicom notes that the 129 deaths occurred in 110 incidents between July 1, 2020 and June 2021. All persons shot and killed during that review period were men. 64 of the 110 incidents occurred in Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Catherine. Giving a further breakdown, the oversight body states that 250 police officers fired their weapons in the flagged encounters. A minimum of 1,950 rounds were fired at the 129 persons killed. Data from Indicom also shows that a minimum of 1,374 rounds were fired in incidents categorized as discharge of firearm, missed target. 19 of the 110 incidents were categorized as suspicious. Going more in depth, Indicom reports that 19 of the 129 men shot and killed had no gun or other weapon with at least 308 rounds fired at them. In 74 of the 110 incidents, 89 firearms were recovered. The police oversight body also reports that 17 of the 129 men were reported as being in possession of a weapon other than a firearm. Indicom also observed that no body-worn camera was cited as deployed in any of the 110 incidents. In a retrospective look at killings by the security forces, Indicom says for the 9 years preceding 2014, the number of security force-related deaths was always in excess of 200 annually. Indicom argues that while there was an observable and significant decline in the period 2014 to 2016, there was an increase in 2017 and 2018 and a subsequently significant drop in 2019 to below 100 deaths. However, after 2019, there has been a gradual year-on-year increase in fatal shootings. The police oversight body says it is often cited that the volume of fatal shootings is a police response to violent crime and for which robust action is necessary against the perpetrators. The Commission points out that despite 3,105 security force-related fatal shootings from 2005 to 2021, the civilian homicide rate continues to increase. Indicom acknowledges that any armed and dangerous criminal and gunman must be lawfully confronted by the police in defense of self or others. However, Indicom argues that a narrower annual analysis demonstrates that the security force narrative of proportionality and necessity was not wholly accurate. It contends that in cases involving unarmed persons, those without a firearm, the mentally ill, crossfire victims, females, persons shot in fleeing vehicles, unarmed escaping suspects, CCTV evidence, and survivors of police-involved shootings continue to provide alternative accounts. The Chapelton Hospital in Clarendon has been reopened after years of closure due to lack of funds. It was reopened on Tuesday. The communities to benefit from the hospital include Chapelton, Rock River, Mullet Hall, Summerfield, Crawl River, Pennants, Frankfield, and Crooked River. Member of Parliament Robert Nestor Morgan says the Mucka Health Centre is also to be upgraded. In business, effective Thursday, gas prices see their lowest ex-refinery rates since the second week of January. A litre of 87 and 90 gasoline will sell for $4.50 less. This marks the fifth consecutive week of declines. Diesel and ultra-low sulfur diesel will also go down $4.50. Kerosene is the only category inching up, doing so by 25 cents. Propane will see a $1.17 shaved off its price, while butane will decline by 50 cents. Fuel prices have seen steady declines due to varying factors, including lower demand on the global market as countries brace for possible economic slowdown. In the region, a court in Guatemala convicted former President Otto Perez Molina and his Vice President Roxana Baldetti on fraud and conspiracy counts Wednesday. Their sentences have yet to be announced. Both were acquitted of illegal enrichment charges. Perez Molina and Baldetti resigned in 2015 and have been in custody on charges of permitting and benefiting from a customs graft scheme known as La Linea or the Line. The scheme involved a conspiracy to defraud the state by letting businesses evade import duties in exchange for bribes. Around 30 others, including customs officials and business people, were implicated in the case, which involved about $1 million in bribes and $2 million in lost income for the government. Some of the accused were acquitted on Wednesday. Perez Molina, who governed from 2012 to 2015, continues to deny the charges. He remains under investigation in two other cases. Perez Molina's prosecution was a high point in Guatemala's effort to combat systemic corruption, aided by the United Nations-backed anti-corruption mission. And on the international scene, Facebook parent Meta Platforms Inc. says it will be forced to consider removing news content from its platform if Congress passes legislation requiring tech companies to pay news outlets for their material. The Journalism Competition and Preservation Act, if passed, would allow news companies to collectively negotiate with social platforms over the terms on which their material appears on their sites. Meta says it would rather pull news from its platforms than, quote, submit to government-mandated negotiations that unfairly disregard the value we provide to news outlets, end quote. The value, Meta says, includes increased traffic and subscriptions. Meta, which is based in Menlo Park, California, has taken similar stands in the past. Last year, it briefly blocked news from its platform in Australia after the country passed legislation that would compel tech companies to pay publishers for using their news stories. It later struck deals with Australian publishers. Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat from Minnesota and the bill's sponsor, says the legislation simply allows news organizations to band together to negotiate better prices for their news content with the biggest companies the world has ever known. She points out that in one quarter, Google made $66 billion in ad revenue, while newspapers and little radio stations folded left and right. She notes that they are simply trying to get a fair price for content. And in sports, the West Indies women lost their 3-match one-day international series against England women as the visitors took an unassailable 2-0 lead in the series at the Sir Viv Richards Stadium in Antigua on Tuesday. The Windies women were beaten in the second encounter by 142 runs, a similar margin by which they lost the first game on Sunday. And still in cricket, West Indies captain Craig Brathwaite moved up 8 places to 19th to be the best-ranked Caribbean batter after the latest ICC batting rankings released on Wednesday. Vice-captain Jermaine Blackwood dropped a place to 39th to be the next best batter. And that's it for your news roundup for today. I am Abigail Smythe. See you next time.